Welcome to this week's piece. So I found this for free on Marketplace. I obviously wouldn't have spent any money on it, but it's the perfect little cabinet for my shop because it is skinny and super tall. So I don't have a ton of floor space in here, but I do have height. So I was like, you know what, this will be perfect to put some extra paint in and things like that. And this fits like right in this like little nook and cranny type situation I have that I haven't been able to get much use out of. So that's where I'm going with this. Surprisingly enough, the lady was like, I have so many people that want this, which just cracked me up because I'm like, really? Interesting. So it has about 50-ish years worth of paint on it. So I couldn't get to the hinges or the latch on it to get them cleaned up, to take off, to get them, working smoothly again. So stripping it is. And I'm out of my favorite stripper, so I just went in with my citrus strip. It's what my local hardware store carries, not like Home Depot, but I have just a little guy up the road and they don't carry the tough stuff, so citrus strip it is. Not my favorite, but it'll work once we do plastic and let it sit overnight. So while this is sitting while I'm in the shop, I'm just going to use the heat gun as well. Now, this only works on some paint. You just kind of have to test it out. It's typically really good on latex, but you can see it bubble up and you can scrape it off. Now, something you need to think about here is this is very fumy and it's just super, super stinky. So keep that in mind if that's something that really, really bothers you. I would not recommend this way, but I just make sure that I gear up for it, and it makes me feel like I'm still doing something while I'm waiting for the rest of the stuff to kind of work and be in action. So there's a few different options for you to take off this. I wouldn't have used my scraper on this. There's too many layers of paint, and I certainly wouldn't have sanded through it because latex doesn't do well with sanding. So these are kind of the two options that I would go through. Now the citrus strip is working about as well as I thought it would, which is fine. I don't need this piece to be perfect. It's kind of ratty anyways, and I don't need to get back fully to bare wood because it's going to get painted over. But this'll work, and it'll work even better. I actually will do a second coat on it with the plastic over it. I left that overnight, came back in the next day, and as you can see, overnight with the plastic on, it worked much, much better. And you can actually see quite a bit of the wood sticking through. There's so many rivets and all kinds of stuff sticking out of this that it was really hard to get a good clean scrape just because there's so much going on with it. But it's fine, we're getting there. Now for the hinges, I'm going in with some mineral spirits to deactivate and kind of break down the stripper to clean these up enough to be able to get them off. And then I will do a little bit better cleaning on them, but again, I'm not too concerned with this piece because it's going to be kind of a blended, textured, grungy finish, so things don't have to be perfect here, but I would like them to be functional, so that's what we're doing. And then I'm just having to clean out the paint that was in the screw head that was preventing me from being able to even use my screwdriver in them. So that was fun. This is one of my favorite things about old hardware is when you pull them off and you find tiny creature habitats. I'm just like, wow, you tried so hard to find a hiding spot and you did a great job. So needless to say, all this needs to be cleaned. The whole piece will be gone over with mineral spirits to deactivate everything, get it all scraped off, cleaned up, and then while I'm doing this, I'm doing it with one of these Scotch-Brite pads to kind of help break everything down and give me as smooth of a surface as I can possibly get before starting to sand. And sanding is easy. I'm just going through with 220 just to smooth everything out to give me a decent surface to work with so that the paint will actually adhere. Initially, I was thinking about going over with primer, and then I'm like, why would I go over with primer? The paint's not going to have any issue sticking. I'm not worried about bleed through. And it's going to be kind of cool to have all these layers and texture in this anyways, where I was just going to add it. But if I leave it kind of rough, then I'm not going to have to add it, and I can just kind of let it do its own thing. So that's what I did. Picked out a few colors that I wanted to use: deep water gray, deep water blue, got plum, and pastel peach. I have that custom orange color. I decided against that. I put it on and I just didn't like it, so that one got thrown out of the mix. I'm just gonna do a blend of all of these colors, and you guys know I have no plans when I do this kind of piece. I just, whatever I think is gonna look good, I'll start, and I just keep going and let it happen. There is no map, there's no guide. It's just throwing paint on and being like, oh, okay, this, I don't hate it. Let's keep going. And so these two colors here blend really nicely together. It's the pastel peach and the deep water gray. I meet them up next to each other, and then I use a little bit of water, and then I'm just gonna do the swirling motions. And on this piece, I don't want a super smooth blend. I want kind of that stormy swirl kind of action. I want the peach into the gray, and then I also want the gray into the peach, and I want it to just be kind of modeled everywhere. So that's the look that we're going for, and you kind of work in big arcing strokes and let the colors just kind of flow into each other. You know, it wouldn't be one of my pieces without a little bit of fancy. So what I'm doing is taking this mixed up rose pewter color. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that I just kind of blend this stuff out with my pigments, and I keep it on hand because I use it so frequently. It's just poly with some of the silver, some of the gold, some of the copper, a little bit of red, and it makes kind of this rose pewter color, and I just keep it on hand. So I'm rolling this over the stencil. I'm just doing the stencil on the doors, but then I will take the roller over the entire piece, and not hard, I'm kind of very lightly pressing it, and then I will just give a textured look of the same finish over the entire piece. Now, anywhere that I had the stencil and the poly stuff, that is sealed where it touched, but because this piece is so textured, it doesn't touch everywhere. So I'm taking Peacock blue wax. You'll see a little skin on top of it. That's totally normal, and just let you know that it's good enough wax to really seal really hard. So I just take that off and I dip my brush in, and I'm going to do, again, swirling motions with this too. So the pigment will pick up more in the areas that don't have the poly on it and less in the areas that does have the poly. So it's just going to add another layer of texture and kind of craziness in this whole piece. So I kind of work back and forth, left, right, up, down, swirling any which way to get the wax on, and then I will let that sit. You can let it sit overnight or for a couple hours, and then you'll just go back in with a rag and wipe it back. Now you'll want to pay attention to the directions that you're putting it on and taking it off, because it will kind of leave impressions in your paint. So I want to keep that swirliness going throughout the entire piece, so that's going to be the way that I overall put it on and then overall take it off. So I've been kind of trying not to show you the overall thing right now because I think it's more fun to have a full reveal, but you can kind of see how all these colors are kind of going together even though they're not the same, and all the swirling action that's happening, and the stencil with the blends and then the wax and all that. It just kind of starts coming together as you're working on it. Now I want to put the latch on now, and it wasn't quite time for me to take the wax off, so that's why you see me just doing that little spot, because obviously I don't want to leave it on heavy there before I put the latch on. And I didn't want this part painted in, obviously, because it's very mobile, and I just kind of like the look of it silver. It kind of goes with the stencil, and I realize that this isn't the most pristine piece, but I feel like it's just going to make me happy when I see it and to have my stuff in it, so that's the exciting part for me. And after the wax has been sitting for long enough, I'll go back in with a rag and wipe it back. So on all the larger panels, I do my swirling white back, and then on kind of the edges, I'll go up and down. And if there's any strokes in there that I can see that I want to smooth out, I'll do that. Oh hi, Taryn here with Elegant Upgrades, and we've got our finished piece this week. So this one is just something that I was having fun with because it's for me, it's going in my shop. And you know, like, you look around in your shop and your home, if you guys are like me, and none of your stuff is done. Like, I bring in all this furniture and make it pretty and make it something exciting, and then I get rid of it. And so since I did my last dresser with all the appliques and the painting and all that, I'm like, you know what? It'd be kind of fun to have nice things in my shop too, just to look at and make me feel happy. So that's what this guy is. He was free. He was garbage essentially. But now I think it's so fun. It's just a functional piece. It wasn't anything spectacular, but it is the exact width that I need to go in this one spot in my shop. So it's gonna go there and house a bunch of my things and just be, you know, something fun for me to look at, and not just because I've got, you know, metal shelves and things like that. Nothing exciting in here. It's just functional, you know? It's not anything fun. But now I have a fun piece and I'm excited about it, and it's just, I'll be happy every time I open it up and pull out paint. So that's what this week was about. Thank you guys so much for always being so incredible and awesome and so kind to me. Your guys' comments truly just brighten my days. I hope you know that. There's a few of you who just like, you get my humor, and just your comments, oh my goodness, they just make me so happy. So, okay, I digress. Sorry, blabbing a lot. This is it. I'll show you, you know, some further back photos, and I'm gonna get it put in my spot and all that jazz. But thank you guys so much. So happy that you're here and following along. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. It just helps me out a little. That's it. And I'll see you guys next week.